Okay, thank you. Thank you very much to the folks who've organised this as well. This has been a lot of fun. I hope there are more FlaskCons in the future as well.
Yes?
You introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Paul. I'm a girls lacrosse coach. That's my day job, basically. So this is all a side hustle.
Okay, and I'm Nicholas, and I'm actually a tuba player. I spend most of my PyCons wandering around going, oh gosh, how long will it take them to figure out that I'm actually just a tuba player and not really supposed to be here? But there we go. Anyway, actually, my day job is working at Anaconda, where I'm a principal engineer working on the PyScript team. So the agenda for today is a quick intro to set the scene, what's PyScript, that sort of thing. Then, because we're idiots, we're going to try and live code a Flask Quart app for you. We do, because we're even more idiots, we encourage questions and audience participation, because the way we're going to do this is I'm going to be the pilot and my wingman is going to be Paul, as we're pairing on this sort of a thing. So if you see problems or if you have questions, shout them out. And hopefully we'll have a final app at the end, which we're going to use in our finale, which is actually going to be a Q&A session using the app.
There you go.
Because the app we've called Chatty App, which may or may not be a little bit like WhatsApp. Okay? So hopefully you'll all be able to use your phone, connect, and ask us questions. Okay? So setting the scene. So what is PyScript? Just out of interest, and Ted, I know you know, how many of you have heard of PyScript? Okay, good. So you all know then that PyScript is an open source, blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to read the slide out to you, but Python in the browser, basically. And I just want to make sure I shout out to my employer as well, Anaconda. PyScript is an independent open source project, but they just happen to pay the core maintainers like myself to make that happen. And so we like to say if Python and the web had a baby, you'd get something that looks a little bit like PyScript, okay? So this is actual footage of Paul from the 1980s.
Here comes my mullet. Wait for my mullet.
Okay, but what? Yeah, there we go. What we're going to actually do is build a Chatty app, okay, like WhatsApp, but in about, I don't know, 50 lines of Python, really, on the front end, and about 50 lines of Python in the back end. Look at that mullet. And we're going to use Quart as back end. I've used Flask previously in my career. I used to do some work for Marks & Sparks, who are one of the biggest retailers in the UK, and I wrote their Christmas website for their Christmas food. So all the turkeys in the UK were ordered using Flask between the years 2015 and 2020, when they closed that down and replaced it with something else. So I have some experience with Flask, although it's quite dated, and I used Quart a lot during COVID times. So it's been nice to kind of come back to using Quart. So let's go. Oh, no, you shouldn't see that yet. Oh, man. So here we are. PyCharm. What's Chatty app? Here's the README. Essentially, we're going to sell it to Facebook, and you have a chat app, essentially is what it is. I think let's start with the Quart side of things, because it's nice and simple. Essentially, all we're doing is taking a web worker. Everybody who posts to the server, it gets echoed back to everybody else who's on the server, is essentially how it is. And I kind of wrote this with a little help from Claude. And then I looked at the documentation, and I noticed there's actually an example of how to do this in the docs. So I could have actually just copied and pasted it. But I'm happy to say that between Claude and myself, we managed to make something that looks very close to the demo app in the docs. So there you go. So like I said, we're going to sell this for billions to Facebook. The other thing that you perhaps need to see is the HTML, the static HTML that we send back to the user. And we'll start at the bottom, because here's your standard HTML. OK, this is right, yeah. OK, I'm a VI user, and we're using PyCharm because Paul's here. So he's going to go.
You got a British keyboard.
I've got a British keyboard.
Where's your backtick?
Backtick is here.
Control backtick then. Zoom. 7.
7.
How big you want it?
Let's try it at 200.
All right.
Happy? Okay, that's the biggest you can get. Thank you very much. I appreciate that round of applause. You can't get it any bigger. There we go. Well, we like big things. We're in America. Okay, so it's going to be beautiful. So here's your HTML. It's essentially the world's simplest user interface expressed as HTML in the DOM, as it were. But there are three things I want to draw your attention to. There's some PyScript-related CSS, and we're pulling that from the CDN for PyScript with a particular version number as well. That allows us, so when PyScript goes boom, there's like a red box that goes, hey, I've gone boom, and you get to see the things in a nicely formatted way. And then there's PyScript itself, which is here. Okay, and we use core.js, which essentially starts the WebAssembly that we need to make the thing work and provide PyScript, hydrate that. And then down here, this is where the fun starts. It's simply a script tag with the type, instead of JavaScript or JS or whatever it is, of, oh my, all that auto help is kicking in. So MPY stands for MicroPython. PyScript supports two interpreters. So Pyodide, which is a WebAssembly compiled version of CPython. So if you want everything but the kitchen sink, go use Pyodide. Okay. So in that case, the type would be PY. Or you could use MicroPython, which is MPY. Damien, who I've known Damien for a long time, Damien's done an amazing job with MicroPython. PyScript itself is about 30 kilobytes. MicroPython, when it's zipped up, is about 170 kilobytes. So in about 200 kilobytes, you've got a working Python interpreter in your browser. Now, you haven't got the kitchen sink, your standard library, and all the other, the Gopher module and tkinter and turtle and all that jazz. You don't need it, because MicroPython gives you a subset, an important subset, the sort of the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule. 80% of the time, 80% of the people want this 80% of the features. Okay, so there's that sort of stuff. There are some other subtle differences, but it is mostly just Python 3, as you would expect it to be.
How many of you have heard of or know anything about Pyodide? Let me get a gauge about the audience. All right. Pyodide, one of the interesting things is Pyodide is now basically, or WebAssembly is a official target of CPython. The core Python team is making sure Python runs on WebAssembly. I'd say the Pyodide team is making sure the integration into the browser and all the JavaScript integration, stuff like that, works really well. If it sounds complicated to you, good news, Kodai knows more about Pyodide than he wishes. Talk to him afterwards.
Yeah, so we've got these two interpreters. We're going to be using MicroPython because it's small, quick, and it also means that it works really, really well on your browser, on your mobile phone as well. So what are we doing? We have a URL for the source, which is going to be main.py, which is this file here. So let's start typing some code, and I'm going to type quickly. So the first thing I'm going to do is import JSON, because we're going to be using, that's how we're going to serialize the messages, okay? And then I'm going to forget how to type because I'm demonstrating. So we're going to import the window object that represents the same as window in JavaScript. We're going to use something called the when decorator, which is what we use to indicate when something happens. Do this with a function. And of course, we need to be able to use the WebSocket as well. And then we also need the PyScript.web API. So the PyScript namespace is where we have created some Pythonic objects that wrap around the browser-based APIs so that it just feels more Pythonic. So PyScript.web is a way for you to be able to interact with the DOM. And for that, I want to import the page object that represents the page, a div class, an image class, and a paragraph class. I imagine you can work out what they might be. I know div. Thank you very much. It's like having autopilot or whatever it is, Claude, whatever. Okay, so we also need some references to things. So we need a socket. Okay, we need a user ID of the user whose this code is connected to, and we're using what's it called, RoboHash, where you give it a name and you get a cute robot back, and there are different sorts of robots you can get back, and this we're using avatar set1 for it, but you can set that yourself. So the first thing we need to be able to do is actually send a message back to the server. So let's just assume we've connected, okay, and actually we just want to make sure that socket actually exists. And then let's create a message. And so I'm going to JSON dot, oh, look at this. Aha. I'm used to Vim where nothing gets auto-suggested. So I'm like, whew, this is quite fun. And what we want to say is the user ID is the user ID. And the message is actually, if I press tab, oh, tab to complete, there we go. Gosh, this is like a lesson in using PyCharm as well. Use PyCharm, folks, it's awesome. And then
so I'll give you a chance to do some time.
Yeah.
When I do this, it's a little bit weird to me because I know I'm on my laptop, I'm not in the browser, but I'm importing things that don't exist here, like div. There are proxies around something that's going to exist over there. And also, I have to think it's MicroPython. And so one of the things you'll see when you're writing some of these, you'll put these if statements to see, hey, do I actually have this thing available? Because it might have been turned off in the Python that I'm using.
So we can now send a message. So I've just created an event handler for when we have actually connected. And what I'm going to do is tell the server, hey, I've connected, so everybody in the room sees Paul has connected or Nicholas has connected or something like that. Okay, so we've done that. Another thing that we perhaps need to do is no, not on close. We want to do something like what happens when we actually get a message. Okay, so this is a little bit like JavaScript in that we get an event object with that message. But what we can do is try and get the actual message itself from the string. So that's going to be e.data. Oh, fantastic. Well done. Is this using Claude or ChatGPT or Copilot? This is
single for one line.
Okay. Oh, man. Oh, no, that's just going to be too complex. I can't exist in two worlds at the same time. OK, so I want to sender ID is going to be the message. Little typo, snedder.
British English.
Yeah, British English with all our colours and axes and things. Sender ID equals, I knew I should just copy and paste things. I might do that because I've actually got the finished source code on this window here as well. But so I'm going to do a little bit of that just to save some time. So I also want to extract the message.
Raise your hand if you've done anything like server-side events or WebSocket programming and Flask and stuff like this. So some of these patterns probably look kind of similar. What's really freaky, I'm buying you some time.
Yeah, I keep doing it.
What's really freaky is when you see a demo where the server's running in the browser. What did I mean by that? You can write network interceptors in the browser that will go and catch HTTP requests that would have gone to Flask, but instead get handled locally. So in theory, you could write a Flask in PyScript, which I think was something done in the first couple of months.
Yeah, so you're talking about, I'm both listening to you, concentrating on that code, and typing at the same time, so it feels like I'm doing this at the moment. But yes, so they're called service workers, aren't they? Where they
service workers, yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm doing is I'm basically getting the message. I'm creating a div using the create message container. Messages is the div already in the DOM. Where I'm going to add that message so you all get to see it, okay? So I found it using page.find, and I can see a typo there already, because it's not a square bracket there.
Did you need to import create message container?
No, we're going to write create message. Okay. Yeah, you see, okay. Right. So and then all I'm going to do is messages.append the message container. Okay, and then that's it, really. So the next thing that we need is to create the message container. Okay. So what I'm going to do is copy and paste this because life's too short. But I will talk you through this code as we do it. So what I'm doing is I get the sender ID, the message, and the avatar, and I'm creating a div class. Okay, and I'm adding some CSS classes to that div. the message class, and that's this Python object here now represents that div. Okay, I'm creating an icon. It has a source of these sorts of things using an F string. Maybe I could use a T string in the future. I don't know. Okay, with a class of avatar, and then I'm going to put them all together. You can see it's almost like I'm making a little sort of representation of that part of the DOM tree there. So there's a message container. It contains another div with the icon, with the paragraph, with the sender ID, etc. And the next div next to it contains the actual message content. So you get the picture and the username, and then you get the thing that they've just said. Okay? And then, here we go. So what's interesting about this, again, I'm going to copy and paste this over, because what we need, where's my cursor gone? Let me just check I've got the whole of that. No, I haven't. Okay, let's just add this to the end. Bum, 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 bum. Do any of you lot know what? That's better. Do any of you know what Blue Peter is? Bit of British culture. Blue Peter is a kids' TV show where they always try and do demos, and they always go, and here's one I prepared earlier, and they bring it out from under the desk. This is kind of what I'm doing here.
Hey, this code here, is it executing on the server or the client?
This is all in the client. This is all happening in the browser. So when there is a click event on the connect button, okay, we call connect to chat. Okay, and then I do a whole bunch of stuff about checking that there's a user ID, there's a username and things, and if there's not a user ID, I'm going to set the color to red, okay, thus telling them that you need a username, etc. And I'm getting the avatar that they've selected, and then what I'm doing is I'm removing the registration form, which you use to type in your username and select your avatar type, and I'm showing the chat with that messages div into which all those messages are put. And there's at the bottom a little kind of like typey thing that you put you type. It's like IRC, you know what it's like, okay? And then we connect to the socket, need to get the URL for that, and I'm just instantiating a WebSocket to that URL, and I'm binding on open and on message to the two functions I defined at the top of that script. Thank you very much. Please never ask me to do more than two things at once, because talking and chewing gum is hard.
It's really weird to be thinking that you're typing. Keep going.
Yeah. Oh no! Why not?
While you're typing code that's going to run in the browser. It's really weird to be thinking that way.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you get yourself lost that this div thing is actually a proxy wrapper around a JavaScript object.
Yeah. Yeah.
That Pyadide has wired that up to make it look like Python.
Yeah. Yes. Well, and PyScript has created the PyScript namespace that creates the PyScript.web that gives you all of these blah 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 blah. So we're trying to make it Pythonic, okay? MicroPython and Pyadide have full access to all of the browser's APIs, because we have access to the global this object underneath it all. Just a quick aside here. But they're all JavaScript APIs, so they feel very JavaScripty, and we like to use Python, so let's try and make it Pythonic. So this is does exactly what it says on the tin. Send a chat message, okay? So what do? I find the input, I get its value, okay? If there's no if there's no message, indicate that to the user. Otherwise, send the message. Okay, using the function that I created at the top. And so, here we go. If I go back to the slides,
oh boy.
And I go to, actually, I go to this slide. If you go to ntol.pythonanywhere.com, there's one I deployed earlier, as they might say in Blue Peter. And let's see what happens. So, ntol.pythonanywhere.com. So here we have my chatty app. My name is Nicholas, and I'm going to choose, I don't know, a zombie-based robo-hash. I'm going to connect. So I've connected, and there are 5 others already connected. So Look, Dirk, and welcome, everybody. I'm going to say hello. Whoops, I can't spell. And we're off. Let's sell it to Facebook. Okay, fantastic. Okay. Oh, we got it to work. There we go. So here's the thing. If you have any questions or comments, somebody's discovered that I'm not escaping the text. Well done, that person. How many of you are using it on mobile phone? Good. Is it nice and snappy and quick? Yep. Good. So Python on your phone. It's not just on the web. It's anywhere the web is, and that could be anywhere. There's a browser, which could be on your phone or in your car or on your fridge or wherever. Okay. I love it. You're already kind of improvising, which I think is great. So if you have any questions or comments,
post them.
Yes, post them. Let's see.
This point about memory is a big deal. When PyScript and PyDie first blew people's minds a few years ago, it was noted that iOS keeps a strict limit on per tab memory usage, and the budget was under the amount that PyDie took at the time.
Yeah.
So getting a Python that can run in mobile browsers comfortably is important work that your team is helping to lead on.
Yeah. It's also a lot of fun seeing what folks do with it. This is especially important in the education world because most kids, this is their primary computing device, okay? And print hello world is boring, okay? What you actually want to do is create a funky little app like this so you can, well, do whatever teenagers do with funky chat apps and things, okay? It's kind of fun. And it's doing what you're doing. You're playing around and, somebody's put a link in there and so on and so forth. So you're doing all the right things. But there have been no questions. So you who've been a wonderful audience. No.
Hi. Oh, put it there.
Yeah.
David, do you have any kind of feeling about the Flask community? What's the split between returning HTML or returning JSON to React?
Oh, nowadays, I would guess, I feel like it's got to be like 80% APIs at this point. You know, 5, 6 years ago, I would have said closer to 50-50 or the other way around even. But I'm trying to push back and go back to HTML.
Well.
And I wonder for the ones that did make the change, how many of them are for websites versus web apps? The web site is never going to work with PyDie. It's too big. MicroPython is the size of a JPEG.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, yes. So Micah has asked, what are the most notable limitations of PyScript? I'm going to ignore what's going on there and try and answer the question. So notable, let me try and scroll up for the questions. What are the most notable limitations of PyScript? So to get PyDie into the browser, you need to get the whole of Python into the browser, and that's rather large. We do cache, okay? So the next time you go to the web page, it's going to be pretty instant, okay? For MicroPython, as Paul just said, that's very, very small. The assets get to you very, very quickly, and you've already got Python in the browser then. I could be here all day. Find me in the corridor and I will talk to you.
PyPI packages. You want to talk about that?
PyPI, yeah, okay. So, oh man. Oh yeah, beautiful. Okay, thanks, not Paul. When you start up PyScript, every time you start PyScript, it installs all the packages for you from PyPI. That can be a bit of a burden first load because it has to go and get the things. It's like your pip install -r requirements.txt every time you press Ctrl-R, okay? But we cache, okay? So that's going to be very, very quick second time round. But a surprising, in fact, an impressively large amount of the Python ecosystem works really well with CPython, with PyDie, in the browser. And PyScript tries to build some bridges so that it makes it very easy for you to do your usual Python stuff in the browser. But if all you're after is, I just want a kind of a Python-ish thing in the browser, then MicroPython will do. But a design pattern that we're seeing emerging is that somebody will, Chris, let's get rid of that, that's very silly. PySheets, this is Google Sheets but recreated completely in PyScript. So the user interface has been created using MicroPython. That's running on the main thread. Meanwhile, while I'm talking to you, in the background on a web worker, Pyodide is being loaded and is ready as a side compute of just any sort of Python that you might want. And then if you go to a sort of a sheet, okay, here we go. It's loading, and you'll see what's going. It's starting Pyodide, etc., etc. You can see it all happening there. There we go. This is quite an extensive, being used in production, website that uses PyScript for all of these things.
I think you have things like Pydantic, which has Rust extensions, which actually there's a limited set of things with Rust extensions that are actually available in WebAssembly.
Yes, so of course, if you've got native, if you've got C-compiled extensions or Rust or whatever, you need to get a WASM compiled version of those for them to work with Pyodide in the browser. But the Pyodide project are refining and working hard with the PyPA to try and make sure that there is a solution for that sometime soon. It's been sometime soon for about the last 18 months, so you know, it's like writing a PEP, this, isn't it? But they curate a list of the most common Python packages that have C extensions. So you know, you want pandas or NumPy or something like that that has C extensions. It's all there. It's already compiled. Pyodide knows where to grab those things, and so you're away, really. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I'm not even going to go back to the tab with the chat on it. But if there's nothing else, then that's it. Thank you very much. Or was that?
I was asking just the DOM API. You didn't exactly mimic the methods of the JavaScript DOM API. Like instead of a pen child, you used a pen.
Yes.
So what was the kind of thinking and how you came up with your?
Okay, where JavaScript wants you to add something like append to child, we're going to use the Python thing. You append things to lists. So we are going to use the Python dialect, if at all possible. You can just get down to the JavaScript object anyway. There's a reference to that. All we're doing is wrapping it in a Pythonic kind of a class, really, and it's just passing things through from the Pythonic API to the JavaScript API, or we're shortcutting things that you might not need, or you know, that sort of stuff. So yeah.
Somebody wants the source code.
Somebody wants the source code for this. So it's GitHub ntoll, N-T-O-L-L /chatty app. So if I go like this, GitHub ntoll chatty app. Boom. There we go.